the decades where alien encounters of the first, second, and third kinds occurred, none has been so rich as the 1960s. That decade, a decade of social revolution in America. A decade of war. A decade of flower children. A decade of social upheaval. A decade of UFO contact. A decade of counterculture. A decade of aliens and hippies. The hippie counterculture fostered the creative geniuses that built the information technology revolution and Silicon Valley. Steve Jobs, hippie utopianism, freedom, it all led to an alien-hippie symbiosis. UFO sightings proliferated the United States with the advent of hippie counterculture. As this computer graphic modeling illustrates, the social revolution that rocked and permanently changed American culture, music, and language exploded. And leading up to that pivotal decade of hippie peace and love in the 60s were nearly 2 decades of increasing alien activity in our skies. The seminal alien contact, hearkening the UFO reality into the American consciousness in the 20th century, was the UFO crash and retrieval at Roswell on July the 8th, 1947. Aliens became branded in the consciousness of humanity ever since. From that fateful day, our government and military, the anti-hippies, bombarded the Americans with cover stories and cover-ups, shielding a new reality that we are not the only sentient beings in the universe. Throughout July of 1952, the nation's capital was buzzed by alien craft flying in formation over the Capitol building and the White House. The UFO encounter was caught on film and witnessed by thousands of Americans. The media was compelled to report the sightings as reality. The Washington Post confirmed the alien event. The New York media confirmed it. Throughout the decade of the 50s, alien interest in America increased with our rapid technological advances. UFO sightings were commonplace, such as in Carson, St. Nevada. There, a U.S. Air Force B-25 crew pursued a UFO at high speed in 1952. Later in the decade in Bismarck, North Dakota, 45 people witnessed a glowing UFO that flew erratically. Once again, a U.S. Air Force fighter was scrambled to intercept the intruder from outer space. According to the after-action U.S. Air Force report, acquired through the Freedom of Information Act, an F-84 Air Force jet gave chase, but at 26,000 feet, the UFO simply vanished from sight. We monitored them. The FAA tracked them daily on radar. As UFO encounters increased later in the 50s, state-of-the-art military monitoring improved. That included a U.S. Air Force RB-47 jet, which spotted a huge UFO in the late 50s. The RB-47 tried to intercept the flying saucer, all in vain. Before England gave us the Beatles in the skies over the UK during the 1950s, our best pilots, such as Captain Milton Torres, intercepted a UFO of insane proportions over half a mile in diameter, according to Captain Torres's onboard radar scope. He encountered this massive UFO in the skies over England. The UFO simply outmaneuvered Captain Torres into the heavens. Shortly before the hippie counterculture revolution transformed Western culture and UFO contact, a man of God witnessed the alien phenomenon. In Australia, that man of God was Father William Booth Gill. On June 26 through 27th in 1959, Father Gill and a dozen other people witnessed flying saucers with humanoids. These aliens signaled Gill and his UFO witness apostles. Aliens on Mother Earth repairing their UFO. Sightings in the late 1940s and 50s built in number, but those were dwarfed by the 1960s. Why? Could it be that hippie-altered consciousness drew in aliens from throughout the Milky Way? The hippie counterculture was anti-war and anti-nuclear weapon. Did the hippies draw in alien craft at Maelstrom Air Force Base in 1966? In the early months of 1966, alien encounters were a regular occurrence at Strategic Air Command. UFOs regularly buzzed 5 SAC missile bases: Maelstrom Air Force Base, Ellensworth Air Force Base, Minot Air Force Base, F.E. Warren Air Force Base, and Whiteman Air Force Base. As hippies called for peace, free love, and higher consciousness stimulating UFO contact, coincidentally, a high activity of UFO flights coincided with the deployment in 1966 of America's Minuteman II intercontinental ballistic missile system. The year 1966 was unique. By American nuclear stockpiles had reached an astounding level of 31,700 warheads. Alien fixation in '66 was with American technology, especially nuclear weaponry. U.S. Air Force Captain Robert Salas had a close encounter of the first kind as a missile launch officer. Captain Salas detailed his 1966 UFO experience of a missile launch shutdown initiated and controlled by UFOs. Earlier in 1966, on January the 3rd, a U.S. Army colonel and rocket launch expert personally witnessed and photographed UFOs traveling between Mach 3 or 2,000 miles per hour over Los Altos, California. Hippie counterculture, the antimatter to the dark, deep black government secrecy surrounding UFOs and alien contact. Hippies. American cultural antimatter to tightly controlled military decorum. Hippie openness, the 60s, answer to the governmental UFO secret and top secret clearances. Hippies in tune with nature. Hippies seeking altered states of reality, dropping acid, or experimenting with peyote. Led to Zen mind expansion, out-of-body experiences, leading to contact with aliens and sightings of UFOs. Like the wild psychotropic mushrooms that pop up by the millions after a rainstorm in nature. Hippie communes flourished in the cleansing cultural rainstorm of the 60s social revolution. The fullness of hippie commune life proliferated all over the American landscape. This map illustrates the widespread explosion of counterculture communities proliferating throughout America. But the hippie counterculture explosion coincided with mass UFO sightings throughout the 60s. As this computerized plot map of the 1960s UFO sightings in America clearly illustrates, UFO flyovers of confirmed sightings match the locations of hippie communes. Examine for yourself. Here are the location in the 60s of both hippie counterculture communities and UFO sightings. Look as we superimpose the two maps. The incidence of UFO sightings over hippie communes is uncanny and widespread. Is it possible that the hippie counterculture, hippie experimentation with mind-expanding drugs, and higher consciousness expression through meditation and hippie psychedelic music scene drew in alien contact? Hippies not only say yes, but know their vibes and altered consciousness drew in UFOs like that at Alien Camp. In touch with nature. Luring outer space cultures. With music. With dance. With chants. With peace. With joy. With openness. With counterculture. With altered states. With love. With happiness. With Gaia. With understanding. With universal brotherhood. Hippies and aliens. Idaho. Blaine County. Alien Camp. A haven for hippie commune lifestyle and infamous for drawing in UFOs from the heavens. There are alien hieroglyphics or alien glyphs throughout Alien Camp. Hippies drew in visitors from the cosmos with sublime transcendental meditation. Married to drug-induced enlightenment. And a devotion to pure love and joyful music. Why would the hippies draw in alien contact? Hippies would say they are utterly non-threatening. Hippie curiosity and openness are the drugs of choice for extraterrestrial visitors. At Alien Camp, hippies proclaimed that they afforded the aliens a way station of intergalactic free love. The proliferation of hippie counterculture and its obvious influences directly led to a remarkable occurrence. A major newspaper assigned a beat reporter to investigate the vast number of UFO sightings. Counterculture communities were overflowing with hippies in the cities. in the wilderness. The International Times reacted to the hippieization of the American mindset and acknowledgement of the reality of UFOs. In 1967, the paper assigned a full-time UFO correspondent. That correspondent was John Mitchell. Mitchell even went so far to begin reviewing serious scientific research into the UFO phenomenon. He wrote profile pieces on French astronomer and NASA scientist Jacques Vallée, who 50 years later remains a forceful scientific voice researching and studying the existence of flying saucers, their strangeness, and the higher consciousness that it takes to understand them. Hippie counterculture fixation with space, aliens, UFOs, extended beyond drug-enhanced contact or meditation. It included an expression in the art that hippies produced, specifically in their posters. Hippies created a new counterculture arch reflecting their connection with what they called flying saucers, or their outer space brothers. As hippies and American Indians blossomed in the mid-60s at the Red Dog Experience in Reno, Nevada, attaining altered states. Hippie thought and contact with alien brothers manifested in reality during NASA's Gemini program. During the first week of June 1965, Gemini 4 was launched into Earth orbit and flew over 1.3 million nautical miles in its mission. While in orbit, NASA astronaut Jim McDivitt noticed an unidentified object from the Gemini 4 capsule. McDivitt described what he saw to NASA Ground Control, located in Houston. Here is McDivitt's precise description of the UFO taken from NASA transcripts of the Gemini 4 mission.
During my flight on Gemini 4 in 1965, I saw an object in space fairly close to our spacecraft that I could not identify. It looked to me like maybe the upper stage of another rocket. I tried to take some pictures of it, but unfortunately the pictures did not come out properly. We never were able to identify what it was, and all of our ground radar tracking data indicated that there shouldn't have been another object anywhere near us at the time.
A shock, surely, to McDivitt and NASA to see a UFO outside the Gemini capsule. For hippies, this sighting was as normal as meditating, painting, peacefully protesting, or partaking in peyote to travel out of their bodies. Six months later, in December 1965, on NASA's Gemini 6 mission, NASA astronaut James Lovell observed and described in detail a UFO. This is the transcript from the Gemini 6 mission as Lovell and NASA Mission Control discussed the sighting.
Gemini 7 here, you want your 8? Lot's clear. 7, go ahead. How close are you at 10 o'clock high? This is Houston. Say again, 7? How close are you at 10 o'clock high?
Back on Earth, the alien hippie nexus spread across the Atlantic to London. Hippie counterculture influence formed a reality where music, light, meditation, and UFOs met. The UFO Club redefined the music that was the touchstone for hippie counterculture. Hippies would say that the UFO Club drew in not only fans of hippie music of the era, but reflected the openness that attracted aliens to contact them. Contact in Michigan. Hippie counterculture abounded in Michigan, and with hippies came their space brothers, UFOs. And those space brothers buzzed Michigan in 1966 with the most incredible UFO chase, outdoing the iconic car chase from Bullitt. The most legendary UFO car chase in the counterculture 60s happened on March 14, 1966, in Dexter, Michigan. A call into Dexter's police dispatcher from two Washtenaw County Sheriff's deputies, Corporal Broderick and Deputy Bushrow, began a night of UFO lore. The deputies pursued UFOs in the county sheriff's department car number 19. From Corporal Broderick's own words in the county sheriff's department report number 00967.
At 3:50 a.m., me and my partner, Deputy Bushrow, notified our watch commander on our radio that we saw some suspicious objects in the sky. They were discs with starlight colors. I sketched a likeness of what we saw. We clearly were able to discern that they were green and red and moved incredibly fast. The UFOs were making sharp turns that no plane was capable of and flew away so fast that they vanished within seconds, going in a northwest direction.
Minutes later, a Livingston County Sheriff's deputy spotted the same UFOs. 5 minutes after that, a Monroe County Sheriff's deputy alerted his dispatcher that he saw the same red and green UFOs traveling at a high speed over the highway. Witnesses, both law enforcement professionals and civilians, observed the alien craft. One was fortunate enough to snap a photo of the UFO. 3 Michigan police agencies reported the UFOs were tracked, flying at incredible speeds through 3 counties. Corporal Broderick explained in even more detail in his report.
This is the strangest thing that my partner and I have ever witnessed. We would not have believed this story if we hadn't seen it with our own eyes. These objects moved at just fantastic speeds. The UFOs could dive and climb and hover with great maneuverability. It would swing back and forth like a pendulum and then shoot upward at tremendous speed, hover, and then come back down just as fast.
That early morning close encounter of the first kind was witnessed by 12 police officers and sheriff's deputies, including Robert Taylor, Dexter's police chief. In Chief Taylor's own words, echoing half a century ago,
I saw an object in the field from Frank Manor's home on a knoll overlooking the area. It appeared as a pulsating red glowing object. Through binoculars, it had a light on each end of the thing.
This is consistent with the conclusion reached by the County Sheriff Douglas J. Harvey back in 1966. At his office, after seeing the detailed drawing by his deputy of the alien craft that led his deputies on a high-speed chase, he said,
If there is a such thing as a flying saucer, this must be it.
As Sheriff Harvey's candor illustrates, his deputies engaged in a memorable encounter with what he described as a flying saucer. As reported in Hillsdale College's The Collegian 50 years later to commemorate the event, 17 Hillsdale College students from the McIntyre Residence Hall witnessed the UFOs from 10:32 p.m. to 4:30 a.m. One Hippie student, Barbara Cohen, described over 50 years ago what she saw.
I ran to my window and there it was, radiating intense silver-white light. And it was heading directly for the dorm. A brief flash of lightning illuminated it for just a second, and in that second I saw what appeared to be a squashed football or basketball. The object nervously darted east, away from us, stopped in midair again, and moved in a jerky way, first north, then south, then up and down. It seemed to be frantic. I ran to my window and there it was. A football-shaped object with red, green, and pulsating lights.
Gidget Cohen's classmate and fellow hippie, Cynthia Poffenberger, was a witness too.
I went to Pinky Poffenberger's to get her story. She had seen the flying saucer when it first approached. I jumped on her seat and began questioning her.
It was a football-shaped object with red, green, and pulsating lights. I couldn't take my eyes off this thing. It flew down towards us and then passed near our dorm. Then it just went swoosh and disappeared. Heading south of the campus, about 30 minutes later, the UFO returned. We called the Michigan Civil Air Defense and the cops. The UFO just stayed there for 10 minutes while we meditated.
That night, some 87 witnesses at Hillsdale College had a close encounter of the third kind, including 17 female students at the dorm and Hillsdale College dean. What drew those UFOs, or as the students called them, flying saucers, to Hillsdale College that night? Could it be the ragging counterculture in 1960s America? Could it have been that hippie connection to aliens filtering into the consciousness of American university culture? Could it be the drivers of those UFOs, the aliens themselves, were drawn to a time of openness in American universities? Could it be the student and hippie and human shared values of love and freedom? Michigan-based historian Will Matthews said of the two publicized extraterrestrial flyovers of Michigan in 1966, it would not be overstating it to say that the sightings in Dexter and Hillsdale, 2 nights in a row, each with a large number of witnesses, are amongst the top 2 of 3 most publicized UFO events of all time. Matthews went on to say it resulted in Gerald Ford, who was a congressman in Michigan in 1966, to call for congressional hearings. Witnesses to extraterrestrial craft in Dexter and Hillsdale called their congressman, Representative Gerald R. Ford, the future 38th president. In 1966, Gerald R. Ford was Congressman Ford, representing Michigan's 5th District and the minority leader of the House of Representatives. Buried in the archival materials at President Ford's official library and museum were critical documents of this public attempt to investigate the UFO flyovers of Michigan. In the archives is found a March 25, 1966 post-UFO statement by Ford. In Ford's own words,
in light of these new sightings and incidents, it would be very wholesome for a committee of the Congress to hold a number of hearings to call responsible witnesses from the executive branch of the government and witnesses who say they have sighted these objects. I feel the American people would feel better if there were a full-blown investigation of these incidents.
In a stunning turn of events, a high-profile American went further than any politician previously. Congressman Ford then went on the radio on March 25, 1966, and called for a major open federal investigation into the UFO sightings by his Michigan constituents. His words from that radio interview, found in the Ford Congressional Papers from 1947 to 1973, Box D37.
I believe Congress should thoroughly investigate the rash of reported sightings of unidentified flying objects in southern Michigan and other parts of the country. I feel a congressional inquiry would be most worthwhile because the American people are intensely interested in the UFO stories, and some people are alarmed. It would be most worthwhile because the American people are alarmed by them. Air Force investigators have been checking such reports for years. In light of the new sightings and incidents near Ann Arbor, Michigan, and elsewhere, it would be a very wholesome thing for a committee of the Congress to conduct hearings and call responsible witnesses from the executive branch of government and other witnesses who say they have sighted these objects.
Representative Ford wrote letters to other members of Congress alerting them of the UFO incidents and the need to investigate. He publicized an open letter to the Congress. Dated March 28, 1966, and addressed to George P. Miller, Committee on Science and Astronautics of the House of Representatives, and Representative L. Mendel Rivers, Chairman of the House Armed Services Committee. No doubt you have noticed the recent flurry of newspaper stories about unidentified flying objects. I have taken special interest in these accounts because many of the latest reported sightings have been in my home state of Michigan. Because I think there may be substance to some of the reports, and because I believe the American people are entitled to a more thorough investigation that has been given them by the Air Force to date, I am proposing that either the Science and Astronautics Committee or the Armed Services Committee of the House schedule hearings on the subject of UFOs and invite testimony from both the executive branches of the government. I and some of the persons who claim to have seen UFOs, I enclose material which I think will be helpful to you, assessing the advisability of an investigation of UFOs. And what was then President Johnson's response to Representative Gerald Ford's public appeal for open UFO investigation in Washington, D.C.? Silence. And what was the response of Senate Majority Leader Senator Mike Mansfield? Silence. What was the response of Speaker of the House of Representatives, Representative John Williams McCormick? Silence. What was the response of the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Earl Wheeler? Silence. What was the response of the Chief of Staff of the United States Air Force, General John P. McConnell? Silence. Through a whitewash. Silence. The power brokers in Washington, D.C. in the mid-60s echoed Simon and Garfunkel with the sound of silence. An unsung and unanticipated hero of UFO disclosure, forgotten in the last half-century, was on the surface of hippie culture, and none other than conservative Republican Congressman and future President Gerald R. Ford. '60s counterculture poet Neil Oram said it best of the hippie connection to UFOs.
UFOs are not just in the air. They have become a religion, and the word a common sacrament to everyone who had tripped.
What was the stimulus that allowed hippies to call in and contact UFOs? Maybe hippie meditation? Maybe hippie free love? Maybe hippie art? Maybe hippie communal spirit? Maybe hippie music? Maybe hippie UFO posters? Maybe hippie use of LSD? Maybe all of it. Hippie counterculture freed them to experience a connection to the universe and UFOs, to a transformation where the two become one, aliens and hippies. The fifth dimension spoke of the dawning of the age of Aquarius, a new age of enlightenment and understanding. Indeed, we are now well into this new age, and our culture reflects it. We can thank the hippies for this new consciousness. Though the hippie era only lasted a few years, the product of that moment in our history changed and lifted our consciousness, whereby UFOs and alien visitations were more welcomed. Hippies and the hippie counterculture raised the vibrations of the entire planet, and that vibration has been expanding into our society, our politics, and our religions. Western culture has changed now. We are more accepting of Eastern philosophy and understanding. More Americans meditate now than ever in our history. We are seeking solutions to clean energy, healthy foods, and a growing understanding of the differences between race, sex, and cultures. All of this can be directly attributed to the hippies. They changed the world. The rising of hippie culture has opened the door for more alien visitations. Sightings of UFOs have increased exponentially since the 60s, when hippies opened that door. Our technology has also advanced with cell phones, computers, HD TV, and more. Technology has filtered down into our society, changing the way we communicate on a global scale. How we produce art, how we make music, and how we share all of this with each other. Hippies opened that door. It was during the hippie revolution that we landed men on the moon and brought them safely back to Earth. One view of the Earth from the moon caused all of us to see our planet in a new way, as our home, the only home we have. In 1971, Edgar Mitchell became the sixth person to walk on the moon. But he spent the rest of his life convinced that aliens have been observing us and have been here for some time. He once claimed that peace-loving aliens had visited Earth on a mission to save humanity from nuclear war, and suggested the Vatican knows the truth about the existence of extraterrestrials. Mitchell also alleged that UFOs had been seen above nuke bases and often disabled the missiles held within Cold War-era missile silos. The spaceman firmly believed the American government covered up the famous Roswell incident in 1947, when a flying disc allegedly crashed near a small town in New Mexico.
The reason for the denial was, number one, they didn't know if these were hostile and could we protect ourselves from them. Didn't want the Soviets to know, so they could devise to lie about it and cover it up. We got billions and billions of stars in a galaxy, and billions of galaxies, and it doesn't take but a few planets around a few stars to have quite a few civilizations.
Hippies introduced us to a new freedom, not just from things, but as a way to share our experiences with each other. Free love has given way to a better understanding of sex today. Many of the taboos that held mankind in a rigid consciousness have opened up to more freedoms of expression today. We are far more accepting of sexual preference and cultural differences. We have come to learn that the planet itself is a living organism that requires us to shepherd it and take care of it. Today, we enjoy a more openness towards alien visitations. The taboo of never discussing UFOs has faded, and today we no longer ask if UFOs exist, but where they come from and why. Average people, government officials, even the Vatican now openly discuss UFOs and alien life. Our music has changed too as a result of hippie vibrations. We now have a new category of music called New Age, a form of music that is celestial and heavenly. In this new age of Aquarius, our world is far more open, and we are continuing to expand on the thoughts and ideas hippies brought forth into our consciousness. The idea that UFOs are real is now common. The 21st century is far more accepting to a new paradigm of alien reality, alien visitation, alien contact. UFOs are seen almost daily throughout the country and throughout the world. Direct and open communication with aliens is no longer speculation. Many can sense that it is coming, probably sooner than later. We can thank the hippies for that as well. What will this new age we are entering look like? The hippies knew, and they have been telling us since the counterculture revolution of the 60s. As one generation passes away, they leave an indelible mark on the next. contribute the openness we have today to the fact that hippies opened our consciousness. Allowing us to accept the alien presence and made us more aware of ourselves. Perhaps this is what the aliens have been waiting for all along. Hippies opened our consciousness to new ideas and different ways of thinking. The counterculture revolution is not over. Indeed, it has just begun. Hippies and their willingness to explore within themselves allowed a generation to expand their awareness and become more accepting of the alien presence. This gateway in society opened the door for more UFO contacts and created a path toward full disclosure of UFOs and aliens. If not for the hippies and their push to rid us of the narrow-minded societal taboos and restrictions, we may not have all the things we take for granted today. The hippie revolution of the 1960s was a turning point for mankind, the awakening of a new age of openness and acceptance of love from all beings. This was necessary for the day we make contact with aliens. The day will come when man and alien stand side by side together in peace. When that day comes, we need only to look back to the hippies for the conditions that made it possible.